gets to see up close. In Business Wars, we're going to be delving into the most iconic and fascinating battles among rivals, like McDonald's versus Burger King, Nike versus Adidas, or Coke versus Pepsi. Others may be less well known, but they'll be just as dramatic. You'll get a close, inside look into the dynamic, sometimes commanding and cunning entrepreneurs who drive these companies. We'll learn about the strategies these business titans use to trump their rivals. Today, we take you to the front lines with an 8-episode series on the battle between Netflix and Blockbuster, and eventually HBO. It was a war. It lasted 8 grueling years. It left behind casualties, thousands of hollowed-out buildings, and economic losses in the billions. Maybe you or your parents remember those times back in the 90s when you'd get that itch for a movie and hop into your car, turn on the radio, head out for Blockbuster. You remember you'd pick out your VHS or DVD and stand in line trying to ignore all the popcorn and candy at every turn. If you were lucky, they actually had the movie you came for, but often you left with a second or third choice, and a lot of times the rental fees turned out to be just a down payment, because all too often there were hefty late fees too. Around 1997, along came a guy named Mark Randolph. He was a Silicon Valley marketing wizard with a mind like a wearing blender. And he had a mathematician friend named Reed Hastings. Real forward-thinking guy, computer programmer. Well, Randolph and Hastings came up with a whole new model for distributing movies to consumers. When Reed and Mark came up with Netflix, they knew they'd have to take on the mother of all movie rental chains, Blockbuster. What they didn't know, what they didn't even see coming, was that eventually their business model would upend network television too, and change the entire movie industry. Bottom line, if you like lots of movie choices at the touch of your remote or your smartphone screen, the truth is you can thank Hastings and Randolph. Writer Gina Keating takes us to the moment when the possibility of all this crystallized. Business Wars is brought to you by Chase. So, you're ready to buy your first home. Congratulations, that's huge. At Chase, they know that you're a researcher and a planner. You come this far, and you're smart money over time by /BWNA. It was January 2007, Park City, Utah. The place was packed with independent filmmakers, hoping to find distributors at the Sundance Film Festival. John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, peered out the windshield of his rented Cadillac Escalade at the ski chalets stacked up the mountainside. Antioco was then in his late 50s, with a wreath of salt and pepper hair and an aquiline nose. Made him look like a short boxer or a Roman emperor. He can't remember what he wore that Sunday afternoon, but he favored plain, starched white shirts, open-necked with a blue blazer and slacks. His mood was confident, exultant even, but he didn't want to get too far ahead of himself. The street was packed with impatient drivers, and he was looking for a house number. The Escalade's wheels crunched slowly over the snow-packed streets. Antioco didn't want to be late for his meeting, but he also didn't want to maim one of the hipsters in designer boots and winter gear, slipping and sliding alongside his car. They were all trying to get to the glitzy parties and film premieres on Main Street. The Sundance Festival that attracted all these LA types wasn't really Antioco's thing. He preferred to spend his free weekends at his ranch outside Dallas, puttering, putting up deer feeders, inspecting fences, watching his wife, Lisa Ryder, prize Arabian show horse. Every few months he visited New York to hang with pals from his old neighborhood. They'd spend hours in chic restaurants they couldn't afford in their salad days. Nick Shepard, his high-strung but loyal chief operating officer and right-hand man at Blockbuster, had convinced him to attend this festival as a sort of victory lap. They had found the formula to kill Netflix. Dead. Once and for all. cloud-shrouded mountains. Nick's cell phone rang. It was Hastings from Netflix. He had an offer in mind for Antioco. An offer he said that Antioco would be a fool to refuse. Ironically, it wasn't just Hastings who thought he was holding the winning hand. Antioco was convinced it was he that held the ace. In truth, they were both close to folding. But Hastings, the founder of Netflix, could not fathom how Blockbuster could replicate the complex, intuitive, online user interface that he and his co-founder Mark Randolph had slaved over for 7 years. But Blockbuster's Antioco thought he had done just that thing. Here's how Antioco remembers that call from Netflix's Hastings.
Hey, John, I heard you might be in town for Sundance this year. As a matter of fact, I am. Well, listen, maybe we should get together and talk. I'm going to be in my chalet in Park City all day long. How does lunchtime today work for you? Sounds like a good idea.
When he hung up, Antioco said with a slight sneer, "Of course, chalet, Park City." Antioco and his Blockbuster team were at Sundance to place their orders for the latest DVD releases, and while schmoozing, he picked up a piece of intelligence. Word was Netflix was not doing well, possibly on the ropes, in fact. Hastings sat alone in his chalet, waiting as the gray day warmed a bit and the voices of festival-goers echoed along the street outside. He loved Park City's quaint little town with its clock tower, swank shops, and an old-fashioned theater marquee. He'd bought an old red brick meeting house with a steeple and stained-glass windows and converted it into a vacation home. Here, he and his wife Patty and their 2 children, now in middle school, could escape from overheated, tech-obsessed Silicon Valley to ski, hang out during school breaks, that sort of thing. He hoped that the family trips made up for all the time that Netflix had sucked away. Hastings stayed home in Santa Cruz in Northern California when Patty took the kids to Italy for a study abroad year. Meanwhile, back in Wall Street,
Blockbuster rolls out its online rental service, a new challenge to already struggling Netflix.
when word came out about Blockbuster Online, Hastings opened his laptop to take a look. He shook his head and chuckled to himself. Wow, this is a shaggy dog of a website. I can do better than this sitting at any cafe in the world just using my laptop. But he had underestimated Antioco. Or maybe he had overestimated his own hand. In truth, they had both miscalculated. The search for each other's jugular would become an acquired taste. Hastings had worked obsessively on the code for Netflix's powerful algorithms that tracked web visitors' every movement and preference, amassing an unmatched treasure trove of information. Despite the supremacy of this powerful data-sucking engine, Hastings would eventually learn that Netflix was a shakier vessel than he realized. His co-founder, Mark Randolph, had described the struggle to keep Netflix alive as pissing blood for years. Hastings paced the house alone, waiting for Antioco. Whether the Netflix gurus had struggled for nothing hinged on the outcome of this meeting. First, he would get Antioco to admit what Netflix's data showed, that Blockbuster was going broke trying to kill Netflix with its new Total Access program. See, Total Access let Blockbuster Online subscribers return their DVDs to any of Blockbuster's 7,000 American stores and rent a new movie immediately. Netflix just couldn't match that kind of convenience. But Hastings knew Antioco's pressure point. Actually, Blockbuster was losing money on every transaction. The big chain was already $1 billion in debt. And Antioco's board of directors, led by billionaire investor Carl Icahn, they were yanking on the reins. Hastings had to swallow his pride and beg Antioco to sell him Blockbuster Online, or both companies would die in a slow murder-suicide. Surely Antioco would get this. But if Antioco refused and total access continued, well, Hastings would have to report Netflix's first ever loss of subscribers. Netflix stock price would start melting down along with its equity. By the second quarter of no growth, Netflix would be finished. The company's share price would collapse along with its ability to borrow money to sustain operations. Unless, well, Blockbuster went belly up first from its debt. And so, as he waited for Antioco to arrive, Hastings reflected on the fact that he had repeatedly and publicly dismissed Blockbuster as technologically inept. He wished he hadn't said that. Most people who know Hastings well say that he is a genius and visionary. They also say he does not comprehend people all that well, especially when they act in ways that he considers illogical. And that's how he came to underestimate John Antioco and the boys at Blockbuster Online. They were illogical. Antioco spotted Hastings' chalet and pulled up to the curb. Antioco took a few moments to savor his vindication. The sheer arrogance of Hastings. "You didn't think we could figure this online thing out, did you, Reed?" Warmed by the heated seat, he paused and listened to the engine tick as it cooled. Then, he put on his game face, walked up the snowy sidewalk to the wide wooden porch, and raised his fist. John Antioco had been through 2 years of hell. He had waited for 7 years for Viacom to split off Blockbuster as a public company in 2004 so he could run it the way he wanted. Video stores were dying and Antioco knew it. Once Viacom cut him loose, he needed to catch Netflix, reduce the number of video rental stores, end late fees, and move into digital delivery before the $8 billion industry shrank to nothing. To do all that, he desperately needed control of the $6 billion that Blockbuster generated every year. But Blockbuster's overlord, Viacom, extracted a $5 per share special dividend. Only after Viacom sucked the life out of Blockbuster did it spin off in late 2004, leaving Blockbuster with $1.2 billion in debt.
Corporate raider Carl Icahn sets his sights on Blockbuster. The question is whether he can actually wring profit out of this struggling movie rental company.
Antioco wasn't too worried about the debt until a few months later, when his bid to take over Hollywood Video caught the attention of billionaire hedge fund investor Carl Icahn. Now, Icahn had a reputation for buying stock in companies that he considered undervalued and ruthlessly forcing management to cut costs, sell assets, or buy back their stock at inflated prices. This ensured investors of quick and substantial profits, but often left his target companies mortally wounded. Antioco had tried to take over Hollywood Video 5 years earlier, but ran into problems with federal antitrust regulators. This time he figured that competition from Netflix and video on demand would make his $700 million bid for Hollywood Video look less anti-competitive and more like an attempt to consolidate a dying industry. After all, video store rentals were plummeting. Everyone knew that. At one time, there were something like 70,000 video stores, and by 2005, almost 80% of them were gone. Customers simply had more choices: video on demand, Netflix, and cheap DVDs. Antioco wanted to close the underperforming stores to boost sales at the healthy stores. That would give him cash to invest the hundreds of millions it would now take to catch Netflix. Then Icahn set his sights on Blockbuster. As soon as Antioco met with Icahn, he knew he was in trouble. Icahn's opening salvo made Antioco's hackles rise. "You make too much money," he says. Icahn planned to quickly profit on both ends of the deal. Hollywood Video stockholders would get a premium price to sell their shares. Blockbuster's stock would bump up in value just because Icahn was on the scene, agitating management to squeeze more money out of the deal for investors. So Icon bought $150 million worth of Blockbuster stock and $60 million in Hollywood Video shares, then sat back and waited for Antioco to buy Hollywood Video. But the Federal Trade Commission had not warmed to the merger, and there was a player in the wings no one was laying big odds on. Number 3 video rental chain Movie Gallery, which offered $1.1 billion for Hollywood Video. Antioco had no choice. He had to drop out. With a company already deep in debt, he just didn't have the money to make a counteroffer. Icon was furious. The 69-year-old Queens native had made his name as a cutthroat corporate raider in the 1980s, alongside corporate insider trading felons Michael Milken and Ivan Boesky. The walls of his office in the General Motors building in Manhattan were lined with framed newspaper clippings and photos, like so many hunted trophy heads of business titans and companies he had taken down over the years. They included the former executives of Nabisco, Texaco, Revlon, Time Warner, Motorola, Marshall Fields, Phillips Petroleum, and Trans World Airlines.
Carl Icahn fails to get the blockbuster deal he wanted, and now the movie rental company is struggling to stay afloat.
Icahn was now stuck with Blockbuster, and he was furious. He angrily called up Antioco and demanded that Blockbuster either find a private buyer or pay him a special dividend totaling over $300 million. Antioco coolly refused. So Icahn demanded a shareholder vote to put himself and 2 hand-picked associates on the Blockbuster board. But if Icahn hoped to shake up Antioco, he'd find out soon enough he'd tangled with the wrong guy. Instead of scaring Antioco, the threats made him dig in harder. See, Antioco grew up the son of a milkman in a tough Brooklyn neighborhood. He knew how to deal with bullies. He sized up Icahn and figured he could take him. Every business war starts with an uncertain outcome. Personalities, resilience, skill, and luck all play a role, and every winner uncovers an unexpected edge along the way. If you've been looking for the edge for your company's marketing and sales, then let me tell you about Intent Data IO. They help you identify the B2B buyers that are looking for your product or service. The data they provide is sourced publicly and from around the entire web. It's GDPR compliant, imported directly to your CRM, and it includes actual contact details and powerful information on context to make sure your sales and marketing are effectively personalized, even at scale. They can even coach you on using the data in your own marketing and sales operations. The folks at Intent Data IO are thrilled to offer listeners of Business Wars an amazing pilot offer at IntentDataIO/BW. Just go to IntentData.io/BW and sign up for a 3-month trial. You'll get free setup and a 4th month of data free, but only by going to IntentData.io/BW. Growing a business is hard, especially when you're wasting hours every day moving data from emails to spreadsheets to your CRM to wherever. Shouldn't that kind of stuff just happen without you lifting a finger? Well, the great news is it can, and Zapier can help. Zapier is the easiest way to automate your work. It connects all your business software so you can focus on the things that matter most. That means no more wasting your time on tasks that you know could be automated, because that's exactly what Zapier was built to do. Just go to Zapier.com/BW, connect the apps that you use most, and let Zapier take it from there. Zapier lets you instantly engage with leads, send them to a CRM or spreadsheet, then notify your team so they can act fast on every opportunity. Join more than 4.5 million people who are saving an average of 40 hours per month by using Zapier. And right now through November, you can try Zapier for free, but only when you go to Zapier.com/BW. That's Zapier.com/BW for your free 14-day trial. Zapier.com/BW. Icon mounted a vicious proxy battle to wrest control of Blockbuster from Antioco. He fired off public letters to shareholders, painting Antioco as a greedy spendthrift who got an unconscionable $51 million in pay, but had no solid plan to pay down Blockbuster's debt or fix its drowning stores. Icon urged Blockbuster stockholders to put him and two cronies on the Blockbuster board and throw Antioco off. On May 11th, 2005, shareholders did just that. But Antioco turned the tables. He had a clause in his contract that gave him a $54 million payout if he was kicked off the Blockbuster board. He threatened to activate it. Icon had no choice but to create a new board seat for his hated rival. Then Icon began a campaign of what amounted to psychological warfare aimed at forcing Antioco to quit. If the Blockbuster CEO left voluntarily, he'd have to bail without his $54 million parachute. At every opportunity, Icon tried to publicly humiliate Antioco and make his life difficult. Icon demanded that board meetings be held at his Manhattan office, far from Antioco's Dallas headquarters. At those meetings, he pushed aside Antioco, Blockbuster's chairman, saying he would now preside over meetings. Icon seemed to take pleasure in letting Antioco's proposals die from neglect. Even more mortifying to Antioco and his team, Icon insisted that his 26-year-old son Brett, an aspiring filmmaker, weigh in on any of Antioco's business plans. Icon called Antioco at his office after hours for long-winded discussions about Blockbuster business. When Antioco stopped taking the calls, Icon complained that Antioco spent more time drinking tequila on his ranch than running the business. Reed Hastings over at Netflix watched it all with wary glee. As long as Icon and Antioco